Good morning, this is Kris Shoemaker, also known as Yehudah ben Shomeyr, and you're listening to Coffee with Kris, the time of the day where we share a cup of coffee and share a bit of the Word of God. All right, it's Tuesday, it's our third Sidra, our third Aliyah of this Torah portion of Korach, taken from Numbers chapter 16, and we are going to be focusing on verse 14 right now, and this is all about a false accusation that Korah and his dissenting group is bringing against Moses and Aaron. It says, "You haven't at all brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey. You haven't put us in possession of fields and vineyards." He sounds like he's checking Moses for being a politician who makes all these promises and backs none of them up. You know, oh, there's going to be a chicken in every pot. I'm going to kiss the babies and everybody's going to, have lower taxes, blah, 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 and none of that happens. But this is not Moses' fault. Moses is not the one who said, "I'm going to bring you into the land flowing with milk and honey. I'm going to give you vineyards and fields." God, Moses didn't say that. Moses did say that, but he said that on behalf of God. Moses was God's mouthpiece and spokesperson. He says, God is going to bring you into the land. And he says, "Moses, I want you to bring the children of Israel out of the bondage and slavery of Egypt and into this land flowing with milk and honey that I promised to them because I promised it to their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." So there's these false accusations. Then they said, we're not blind. We're not going to come up. Well, whose fault is it that you haven't possessed this promised land? It's not Moses' fault. Moses didn't make the promise anyway. God made the promise. God is the one who's obligated to fulfill the promise. But since you have been rebellious, God is not going to fulfill his promise just yet because you don't deserve it. You're going to have to wait 40 years before this promise is fulfilled. You're going to have to wait 40 years before you take possession of this land flowing with milk and honey. And by this time, you're going to be dead and your children are going to possess it. So it was really Korach and his dissenting group and all those who rebelled with them. It's really their fault that they didn't enter into the land flowing with milk and honey. Now, let's jump down to verses 25 through 34. And it says, "Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the leaders of Israel followed him. There he said to the assembly, 'Leave the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you may be swept away in their sins.'" Sin is contagious. Somebody's a grumbler, somebody's a complainer, somebody's rebellious. You start listening to their arguments. You start getting their attitude. You start understanding their heart and their mindset. And before you know it, you're jumping in right along with them and doing what they're doing. And it says, So they moved away from all around the area where Korach, Dathan, and Abiram lived. Then Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrance of their tents with their wives, sons, and little ones. And Moses said, "Here is how you will know that Adonai has sent me to do all these things, and that I haven't done them out of my own ambition. If these men die a natural death like other men, if these men die a natural death like other people, only sharing the fate of that's common to all humanity, then Adonai has not sent me. But if Adonai does something new, if the ground opens up and swallows them with everything they own, and they go down alive to the grave, alive to Sheol, alive to hell, then you will understand that these men have had contempt for Adonai." So, this is kind of hinting of what it says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, that bad company corrupts good morals. Basically, all these people were neighbors of Korach, Dathan, and Abiram. Of some of the sons of Korach, which was a clan of Levi, and then you had Dathan and Abiram, which were, I'm assuming, in the camp of Reuben. And who you hang around with, who you are neighbors with, they will rub off on you. They will have some sort of influence on you, whether negative or positive. So it's very important of where we choose to live. It's very important who we choose to hang out with, who we choose to associate with, who we choose to have as our friends and confidants. You have a good kid that's in school, and the hoods try to befriend him, and he's not doing anything bad. He's just hanging around him. But these hoods get in trouble. Well, the nice kid gets in trouble too, because guilty by association, right? He's hanging with the wrong crowd, so it's assumed that he's in with them, and eventually he becomes one of them, maybe because he's being accused all the time or what have you. And so even in the Proverbs, you read through the book of Proverbs, it says over and over and over in many places about if you want to be wise, hang out with the wise. If you want to be foolish, hang out with the foolish. Be careful who you hang out with, because that's who you will become. So this is kind of the lesson in today's Torah portion, in today's devotional. It's like a barrel full of apples, and I'm sure you've heard this illustration before. All it takes is one bad apple to ruin the whole bunch. You know, let's say in the middle or close to the bottom of the barrel, you have this apple that's got a spot on it, and it's soft, and it's starting to get brown, and it's starting to get mushy. Well, if you leave that apple in there, it is going to pollute and corrupt, because it's in contact with all the other good apples. It's going to corrupt all the good apples, and before you know it, you're going to have a barrel full of bad apples, all because of one bad apple. You have to separate that bad apple, or separate the good apples and put them in a separate container, a separate barrel. So be careful who you hang around with. Make sure that they're not a bad apple, because you don't want to turn into a bad apple too. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Go out there and have a great day. Shalom, and God bless.